leg, arm and head. Arm and leg, arm and leg, arm and leg, arm and head. Arm and leg, arm and head. Peace to the guards, nerves. I be the General Steel from the legendary group Smith & Wesson. You already know that boot camp click family. Bucktown in the building. Bucktown in the building. Supreme truth elevates everyone's life equally. Feel me? And it's the knowledge of self mixtape with the future Buddha, DJ King. The one and only 7 born king. Shing regime. T dot stand up. Steel City stand up. Please educate all comrades every day. Drop that knowledge yourself, dog. Peace.
Peace. 1, 2. 1, 2. Yeah, brother. Shing. God, body, alive, taught me and all that. Peace to the gods of earth. Yeah. True. Now it's apparent you calling the Father Clarence. You got no knowledge of nations with all gods and no prophets. For no profit, just taught it to children, passing them knowledge and wisdom, giving them lessons no college could give them. Like for example, see my God, he ain't no mystery. The misery we live in cause them devils changed our history. To put it simply, really, we live it civilly, and I can't do it justice by trying to turn it to similes. Like how you see it, you know it, and then you be it. The Asiatic black man is the highest thing that can ease this, meaning that I'm God and I do whatever I see fit. My mama said turn to Jesus, but really I turned to Jesus. Going over them lessons, I sit and study the teachings. Manifested itself till I'm understanding the meaning. Man, if you ask why I'm God body, I can look you in your eye and say that cause a lot of time is crazy. Right and exact, dog. Yeah. This is Sim 1-4 for the almighty Shem. Always on the lost team, completing a lost dream. Yeah. I was a kickin' in the knock-knee 5th grade. Asked my teacher, sir, how do I travel at Godspeed? 10% reactionary, told me that I'm acting scary. That type of knowledge is something that you kids do not need. I couldn't drop to my knees for no profit. Trees was more profitable. For me, streets was not an obstacle until my partner got locked, cops beat him unconscious. Lost the life of my seed and most niggas was really conscious. I had to see my reflection as the immaculate one in the flesh and then live it to be more accurate. Wondrous steps I took to do it. Knowledge, wisdom, cipher, congruence, understand my culture the truest. The chosen few rose a few over hungry oceans, giving bones for food and told to overcome emotion. The soul controller like I got the world in my hand, y'all. 7 star on the crescent, word to universal sham God.
Represent the arm and leg, arm.
Word to universal sham God. 7 star on the crescent, word to universal sham God.
Represent the arm and leg,
acknowledge my bill, manifest these thoughts and will.
Represent the arm and leg, arm.
These average cats talking, but they don't know what they mean. It's arm, double leg, arm in the hand supreme. You see the power of the cipher when we link as a team. Where's the degrees? Build with the C's, cripple the weak. Keep religion for you, cause the culture for me is 7 notes, 7 colors, 7 chakras and C's. A universal order behind that what you see. You looking up, but what's really at the center is me. And you and I verse, that's everything in between. You can't claim king if you getting run by your queen. My steeds like father-in-law in 63. Wake them up by revealing they jeans right in the street. I got that doggone vision, yeah, I'm serious, B. We see it all, no mysteries, G. No non-scene intervention or whitewash images, lies. Please keep the God cipher divine.
It seems like everyone wants to be the G.O.D., but still be pushing those paper theories while they worshiping some mystery. Some spit slick parochial experience and try to flip our math like gymnasts in Japan. Or the New York Post using quotes to sell a notion that a mogul makes moves with hate. The fuel is mind state. See, I think that every single hood is a modern day Rosewood stalked by white walkers. Well, revolution won't be televised, it's streaming live cause I seen shots on IG. We manifest a legacy and build on today's degree, raising the dead from a mental state of poverty.
arm, arm, a leg, arm, a head, arm, a leg, arm, a head, arm, a leg, arm, a head.
And the brother was telling him, you can't be Allah, because the Allah is all in all. And the father said, I'm all in all. The arm, a leg, arm, head.
This conversation is to discuss what it is like and the experiences, lessons growing up in an Afro-centered household. Hold on one second, y'all. Let me get some ladies. Okay, so yes, the intention for this Zoom is for us to discuss what it's like growing up in an Afro-centered household. Specifically, in Empress's case, is growing up in a household with parents who were not only Afro-centered, but Afro-centered and a part of the 5% Nation. Now, as y'all know, the 5% Nation is very sacred and very private. It is for us and by us, you know, and information and lessons and knowledge is kept very sacred, very private. And it's very rare. I realized now in adulthood that it's very rare for many people to know someone or have someone in their family and their friend group who is even affiliated with the 5% Nation, which I found very interesting, right? Because I feel like in New York, specifically, maybe it's heavily normalized. Like it's normal. It's not like an odd thing, maybe. But you know, I'm very excited for y'all to get an inside the house experience. Okay, full of lessons as well as wisdom from my sister Queen. And what I love so much is, I told y'all before when I had this conversation, I want to have it with somebody who can bring a very nuanced perspective, right? I want to have the conversation with somebody who can speak as a person who has done her own studying and gained her own information and her own knowledge and her own understanding for herself. So there is no dogmatism. There is no, you know, you have to be like this, or you ain't a good Black. You gotta be like this, or you're not a good spiritual. You gotta be like this, or you going to hell. You mediocre niggas need to die. You know, I don't want y'all to, I didn't want that type of energy, you know, and I know that Empress is not going to give that, right? Because she is so much of intentionally free and evolved and liberated woman. So I'm so proud of her. I'm proud of where she is and how she is. And Empress, we are going to talk about your acting career too, because I want us to get into that. Okay, we got to talk about the film. Okay, but y'all, this is my sister Queen. Empress, let's pop it off if you don't mind. I was gonna say this is my sister Queen, Empress Kwamai, but Empress, can you tell them your whole name?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? That's so funny that you asked for my whole name, because when we were in middle school, if anybody found any idea of what my full name or what my sibling's name was, I'm like, don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. It was just so different from everybody. But my full name is Empress Kwamine Honor Earth. That's all the name. And then I got two last names, Wingate Harrison.
5% Nation parents, okay? Empress Kwamine Honor Earth, Wingate Harrison, right?
That's
like powerful, right? Powerful. Now, Empress, when we talk about growing up in an Afro-centered household, specifically to parents who were a part of the 5% Nation, who were 5%ers, what does that mean to you to grow up in an Afro-centered house?
Well, I want to preface first that I grew up in a very unique house, just like all Black people, not a monolith, all Christians, not a monolith. The nation is not a monolith. So I recognize how different my household may be different from others that are in the nation. You know, my father, God rest his soul, he was a very unique, brilliant individual, Vietnam veteran. So a lot of the things that we did were rooted in that as well. So it was very much pro-Black, obviously. If you are familiar with the nation of gods and earths and 5%ers, you know, is, you know, the Black man is God, you know? So that's how I was raised. It was very much empowering, you know, and it goes to show even in the names that he chose. And I have to shout out my mother as well, because she's also a very brilliant and unique woman as well. So growing up in such a big family, because my mother gave my father 9 children, right? So we grew up in this big family. My father has us in the mornings doing exercises, you know, like that goes to show, even from his military background too, as well. With him being so brilliant and eclectic, he learned a lot of different schools of faith and different lifestyles before he decided to join the nation as well. So we always had that aspect of him too. So he was even naming me Empress Kwame. Growing up, I always thought Empress was just like an Asian queen or something like that. Goes to show, like, he was so ahead of his time. Now I'm learning the tarot. I'm like, oh, that's the Empress too. So it's just like, he always was very intentional. So growing up, it was like, we saw the beauty in our melanin, and, you know, we were rocking 3/4, you know, so it was covered from head to toe. As a teenager, as a young girl, did not like that, obviously. We were obviously very different from our peers in school because we went to public schools. So growing up, I was always wearing a head wrap. I was joking with my mother the other day, and I was like, why every picture, my head wrap is halfway off my head, my hair ain't done underneath? She said, what you mean? I'm like, you know what, you had so many children, I'm gonna give you grades. But, you know, so growing up in the nation means we were very much different from the people around us. We learned a lot of lessons. My mother's over here chiming in. She said lessons.
I was about to say, I heard her in the background, lessons.
Lessons. She's like, don't forget the lessons. Yes. And you know what? I thought about the other day too. So we learned in public schools, but my mother always had a whiteboard or a blackboard, and she was always writing up the lessons. You know, what was today's mathematics? How did she see the mathematics? All that before we even went into school, because you never know what we was going to learn in school. So she was like, we're going to get this teaching done and this education done in the home before you even go out there and when you come home. We all had our book of life, and we had to study the lessons as well. When I was younger, again, I was a little rebellious. If your parents telling you to do something, a lot of the times you're going to want to rebel, right? Especially if it's so different from your friends. So me starting my book of life, the longer it went on, the longer the lessons became. So I was always losing my book of life. So I never got past the ones that was just like the one-liners or the few liners. But as an adult, I ended up going back to my book of life and really going through it.
Okay, so first off, thank you for sharing that. Tell Mama thank you in the background for chiming in and reminding me. Now, when it comes to the book of life, right? Wellness community, I hope y'all remember we was watching Lovecraft Country, right? And they had mentioned something about a book of life. And I was like, y'all do realize that, like, in the nation, there's a book of life as well, right? Do you mind sharing what the book of life is and what are some lessons in the book of life that you truly valued?
Yeah, so the book of life is a book of lessons, right? And it teaches you about the history of the nation as well, even though it does say there's no birth record, right? It's older than the sun, the moon, and the stars. But it's lessons. It talks about even the questions and answers. And it's about knowing yourself, knowing thyself, right? Because we think about the 85%, the 10%, the 5%, right? The 85% you would say is uncivilized people, right? Mm-hmm. Those who are deaf, dumb, and blind, right? Don't know who they are. The 10% are the rich slave makers of the poor, right? Teach the poor lives. Teach the poor lives. You want to get on here? No.
Come on, break down for us, please, Mom. Please.
That's why I told her, like, come on,
please.
You know? And then the 5%, how would you say the 5% of those who know thyself, have knowledge of themselves, you know?
The righteous teachers who teach that there's no mystery God. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what we teach. That's one of the lessons that we teach. Like he said, it's a book of questions and answers. Actually, these questions and answers actually came from the mosque, the Elijah Muhammad's people. A brother by the name of W.D. Ford came over from from Asia, and brought these lessons into our country and gave it to Elijah Muhammad. And those are questions and answers. So that's what we be, that's in the book of life. There's a lot of questions and answers. And but the best part of this culture, I'm just going to add on because I'm going to let her continue, is that we had a language. And I was so excited about us having a language because I said a lot of other cultures have languages. And we here in North America didn't have a language. So we have something called supreme mathematics, the supreme alphabets. These are such as like when you say one, we say that's knowledge. When you say two, we say that's wisdom. And with the alphabets, you say A is Allah. But and these days in time, we realize that Allah is not a mystery. We realize Allah is actually us as a people, our arm, leg, arm, head. And so with that being said, these are some of the lessons I added on to them when they were younger. Like she said, before they went to school, I had a blackboard up regardless. And while they were eating, I would put the day's lessons on the board, such as the day is the 29th. And so it's lesson 29. And I used to build on that, as well as when you get to 29, we'll say 2 plus 9 is 11. So then I'd add on the 11th degrees, and we call them degrees. So this is about the 5% nation, and is, like you said, the nation of the gods and the earth. But nowadays it has evolved. It's not just the Black man is God. I see it as human. You know, we talking about Black woman, because in order for the Black man to get here, he has to come through us. You know, so it has evolved, the nation.
And I have to add that that's conversations that her and I have had, you know, to even come to that. You know, I think me being who I am and her being who she is, that's something we've come together, have conversations about, because those were things I questioned too, because that was one of the, you know, the cons of it, where I was like, it's not enough emphasis on women. Like, you know, the Black man is God. And the perspective that I have these days, I understand why they felt the need to empower Black men, right? Because outside the home, they're being disrespected, you know, they're being discriminated against. They don't have that respect, right? So it's like, you got to create something, create some system, you know, to empower yourself again, right? But in those times, I guess they didn't mention the women as much, but they do say in there, you know, the Black woman is secondary, but most necessary. So they do say that. But for my own taste, you know, I'm a bit of a feminist, womanist as well. So I'm like, wait a minute, like, why y'all not mention the woman as much? But that's the conversation my mother and I have, where we're like, you know what, maybe when they're saying the Black man is God, they're really talking about the human, you know, us in this form. And it's not necessarily the man with the penis, you know, it's us on this earth, you know, the original man.
The original man, that part, mm-hmm. Right? Because see, that's something, you know, that when a lot of people are introduced to the nation, they can kind of be, especially as Black women, they can be concerned about joining something that in their mind is perceived as patriarchal, right? Mm-hmm. Since then, things have evolved, right? Things have evolved. The understandings have evolved. I would like Queen Mother, if Queen Mother is willing to come back on and answer a question, just one question, please.
You want to sit next to me? I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
Queen Mother, I want to ask you this question because I know you were not born into the nation, right? And there are a lot of sisters in here, sisters and brothers in here who are curious, right? And they may feel the call, but they're not quite sure. What was it about the nation for you that made you say, this is for me as a Black woman?
It like elevated my mental. When I first heard her father talking, it stimulated my as is said by some famous artists, is that it stimulated my Asiatic. I'm like, what is he talking about? Because he was talking the supreme mathematics and supreme alphabets. So that was something I'm like, what is he saying? I want to know that. So that attracted me. That's what got me into the science. But once I got in, I was able to get some lessons. And with the lessons, it kind of like brought it even or gave me more understanding, because we had the degree where we say that you knowledge the 120, because we call it 120. Our lessons are called the 120 because there's a whole lot of questions and answers. And like Empress said, she did say something to the effect that they weren't building up the Black woman. What it is that we are called the gods and the earths. That is another way we are being called the gods and the earths. And the earths is, we deal with that science, whereas particularly some of the lessons they talk about certain attributes of the planet Earth. and we relate ourselves to the planet Earth. So it really brings us into to the understanding that we are powerful as a woman, because you see all the attributes of the earth. You see, even to the point where it say the planet Earth is 25,000 miles in circumference. We turn that into our language and say wisdom, power. So we as Black women, we got wisdom, power. So we relate ourselves to the earth because the earth is beautiful, is our home. This is where we made our home here on the planet. This is a planet of peace. So with that being said, there's a lot of greatness in it, particularly for the Black woman too, as well. So like I said, we are related to the earth. And
you grew up in Harlem too, right? It was like the perfect timing during that time for you to get knowledge of yourself as well, right?
Yeah, we needed that knowledge. We needed that science to come to us because a lot of youth were not going into the Mars. So the father of our nation, his name is Allah, Clarence, he came out of the Mars and said, I'm gonna go and teach amongst the street, teach the youth. And that's what he did. He went and got involved with the young people and started teaching them. And he also came up with that language. Like I said, that really attracts me because it's so powerful, the language, as well as the lessons. Now, them lessons are lessons from many years ago. You know, like they talk about when we were first brought over here. They talked about like I said, the days, it talked about when our race was made, when other cultures were made. It's a whole lot of questions and answers in them lessons. But we bring them to this day and time. Like I say, what and how devils made them. Nowadays, devils we're not talking about no particular, but we're talking about anything or anybody that's weak and wicked. We're not just talking about the Caucasian, because they say even some of the worst devils are original people who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we teach that we're not talking about the devils or Caucasian. Anybody that's weak, wicked, and trying to rule the next person, we call that a devilishment. So they say what and how devil was made is one of the lessons. So nowadays we take that and bring it up to these days and times, like what and how original people are being on this planet. So we take that best part, and so we're gonna make sure we don't do anything that is devious. So that's this part of it. So much with this culture, and like she said, just to add on real quick, it's like solar systems. There's a whole universe because solar systems make up the universe. But that family right there, another one of the gods and Earth family, they might not be teaching it the same way or building the same way. So it brings about freedom. And our culture, we call our culture, we're free, because for us, culture or freedom. We have a free mind. So that's how we build.
I love that. I love that. And I want to ask you, and you and Empress, right? For you, Queen Mother, how has your journey with the lessons, because essentially what I'm hearing is that your understanding of the lessons continue to evolve over time. How have your understanding of specific lessons for you, like what are the three that pop out in your mind the most? How has your understanding of those lessons for you evolved over time?
I'm gonna talk about like today. One of the lessons is say it's one of the lessons, say the 11th lesson, one of the 11 degrees is will you set up home and wait for a mystery God to bring you food? And we say emphatically no. I'm gonna deal with the food aspect. Like today is the 11th, 29, add up to 11, and the 11th degree speaks about will you set up home and wait for a mystery God? What is important to me for today is because I know I have to eat a proper way. I know I got to eat properly. And if I don't eat properly, there's going to be consequences. So I look at that degree. One of the degrees is, have you not heard, would you set up home and wait for mystery God to bring you food? And they say, no, me and my people have tried that mystery God for food, clothing, and shelter and received nothing but hard times, nakedness, and out of doors. So with that degree, I look at that knowledge, which is the 11th degree. I look at it and say, hey, I got to make sure I eat right and exact because it's going to make me what? Other than myself. Because as we know nowadays, we eating foods that's denatured. So that's making us other than ourselves. It's making us other than allowing our body to do what it must be done because we created it for a particular reason to survive on this planet. But if we eating foods that are negative and not right and exact, boom, we ain't gonna be right. We can't think right. We can't do right. So that's a degree, that wisdom born degree. Another degree is I'm gonna think about it. I'll let Empress add on.
How has it evolved? When I was growing up, like I said, I really didn't tap back in to the lessons until my father transitioned, and right before he transitioned, he wrote out, handwritten, my book of life, put it all together, and it was just so beautiful, just really great, right? But before that, I was not thinking about it so much because I rebelled against it so much. Growing up, you know, we had to be a certain way. As soon as I got out the house, I'm relaxing my hair, I'm doing the short and tight skirt, I'm getting all these piercings, I'm getting everything done that I was taught, you know, not to do growing up, you know. But then it became like this full circle moment after I dived back into my lessons and I was reading them all. And it helped me because my mother told me one time how it could be grounding, knowing your lessons and just even knowing the supreme mathematics and supreme alphabets. One time I was out of town and I had smoked some weed, right? And I was high, so high, and I needed to find a way to ground, right? And she had taught me this technique of, you know, just like we do with numerology, when we see the numbers pop up somewhere else, you know, I look at the time and I see the numbers and I put it in the mathematics and I focus on that and see what meaning comes from that. And it was a way for me to ground in that moment. So growing up, I didn't appreciate it. I didn't appreciate it. Even going through my book of life today to just kind of tap back in and see if there was anything that stood out that I wanted to share with the community. It reminded me of some things I was like, oh, okay, I don't even remember this being here, but this is exactly what I needed in this moment, you know? So it's a very intellectual culture. It's a meeting of the minds. I feel like it's just before its time because it has a lot of astronomical facts, solar facts. Like she says, it focuses a lot on the Earth, you know, and it tells us how far Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, all that is from the sun.
Mhm.
You know, it tells us how much of the Earth is covered by water, how much is covered by mountains and hills. So it's a very intellectual culture.
And it's great because even when it comes to, we had to learn one of the lessons about sound. And we know that sound travels at a terrific speed of 186,000 miles per second. Okay, so now we turn that into our language. We see it as knowledge, build, equality. 1 is knowledge, 8 is build or destroy, 6 is equality. So knowledge, build or destroy, equality, meaning that knowledge, any knowledge that you look, learn, and listen to is going to either build or destroy you. And you get, and it has the equality, but it's just so right and exact. I tell you, and we know that like sound travels at 1,120 feet per second. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. So that's what's up. But like I said, there's so many lessons. I mean, and with her father, not all gods do this, but I had to learn each and every one of them lessons. I had to. I'm trying to think, did I have to learn the amount of inches on the planet? I think I did. But we had to learn how fast the planet traveled. What was some of the other lessons? We had to learn how far Jupiter was from the sun, how far all the planets. I mean, I had to master all of them at one time. I mean, he learned them. Her father learned them in 3 days. I think he went on an island and just learned all them lessons. But it's some beautiful lessons. People are very protective over them. So somebody might say, oh, give me your lessons. We can't do that. What we do, what our father had taught us to do is that if someone wants to study these lessons, what has to be done is we might give you one and you got to come and show us you have mastered that. And then you get to the next one and on and on. And the thing about it is that these lessons, we say you knowledge 120, then you'll be able to speak them. And then you really get the understanding of them. And the understanding is to bring them into this day and time and relate it to how you're going to deal with this day, today, tomorrow, and et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, now, I have Queen Bubba, I have 2 more questions, please. 2 more questions. Now, Empress spoke on, you know, growing up, you were and still are an amazing mother, right? And you instilled these lessons in your children, and you went out of your way to make sure that your children had knowledge yourself and knew who they were, and knew what was expected of them as well, but not just what was expected of them, but basically how to be aligned with righteousness. Now, Empress spoke on how she had a period where she was exploring, and she kind of some would say rebelled, but not necessarily rebelled. She explored, right? She explored. You birthed 9 children and raised many more. right?
Yes.
As a mother, how did you feel when your children would go explore the world? How did that feel for you?
Well, I would just talk to them about that situation, whatever cipher, we call it cipher, which is any person, place, or thing. Whatever things they're going to, I would build with it, add on it. But there are so many different lessons that need to be taught, not just the 120. You have to learn the science to everything in life. Like she's studying the astrology, you got to study chemistry, hematology, all these different sciences you got to learn. That's how you know the knowledge of yourself. You got to know who you are. But when they did go and delve into other sciences, I mean, I'm not their I don't own them. I just assisted them in bringing them into this world. They chose to come this way. They chose them 9,000 miles to be born, to fertilize the egg that I was supposed to. I just gave them their chemical. They here. Their energy that's them. So if they did go astray, we call it going astray. We got a saying that many shall come and only a few will be chosen. And many will come. Many of my children added on, accepted this. But all I can say is I did what I did to add on, because I really wanted my children to bear witness that they should have no fear. They should be who they are, and ain't nobody greater than them. That's not greater than them. That's the main thing, because growing up in our science, it was a completely different. We was thinking it was the Caucasian man was the God, and now we know in reality that that's the picture of Michelangelo's uncle or some stuff, and now we know it was the original man. And with that being said, yes, I really wanted when they go through their sciences. I'm still going through different things, because that's what life is about keep on adding on, building. And so when they went through it, all I could do is add on, they're gonna do what they do.
And she added on. She added on. Wasn't just sitting there just letting it happen. My mother talks her talk. Okay.
Right.
She still do.
Now I wanted to ask about the 85-10-5, right? Because even that description, right? We say the 85 are, essentially like the lost, the deaf, dumb, and blind, right? And I've never said that. This is my first time ever saying that, because I know how
this
hard.
Is my question. Okay, yes, I can add that on.
Some people can take that, right? Some people, that sounds harsh to say that 85% are deaf, dumb, and blind, right? But in reality, come on now, come on.
We all came from that side, because we were brought to these shores here, and we were stripped of all the knowledge that we possess. So we say that 85% of the population are the uncivilized poison animal eaters. We say poison, uncivilized, because they're doing things that's not according to intelligence. They don't even realize they're doing things from another culture of people, not bear witness to who they are. The uncivilized, the poison animals, they got, when being born in this country, we had the worst foods. We had to eat this pork. Now people say, oh, it's all right to eat them. They got kosher pork. Hey, we know sciences that I was taught was that the pork was made from 3 filthy animals. So not filthy because they're animals, but to the point that they were made from the dog, the cat, and the rat. So we don't eat that. That's making us other than us. So we're putting something inside of us that ain't right. It's like scavengers such as lobster and all that. Come on, who want to look like? Who want to be that? People putting that in their system, putting it in this righteous supreme being that we made to live on this planet. The shrimp and all that they got they right. They know what they got to do. They got to clean up the bottom of the ocean, et cetera, et cetera. That's not who we are. We're supreme beings. We here, whether you black, white, whoever. We're intelligent people. That's why we say uncivilized poison animals, slaves of mental death and power. Meaning they slaves of mental death and power, meaning that they have no understanding how discipline and all that. They don't know about that. Okay, so it's uncivilized poison animals, slaves of mental death, people who do not know the true and living God is worshiping that they know not. They're worshiping something other than themselves, and that's what's up. And I'm not, everybody cannot live this culture. Everybody can, whatever. But that's the 85 to 10% is the rich slave makers of the poor who teach the poor lies to believe that the Almighty true and living God is a spook. And don't want to bear witness that we are from that original person that came on this planet Earth. So that's the 10%. So that's the 85, what I said. And the 5% we say is the poor righteous, but the father of our family had said, we're gonna take that poor out. We ain't talking about no P-O-O-R. We pour knowledge on people. We ain't about trying to be poor, because we rich already anyway, but we ain't trying to be poor. So it's the poor righteous teachers who do not believe in the teachings of the 10% and who are all wise and know who the true and living God is. Who teaches that the true and living God is a supreme being, Black man from Asia, who teaches freedom, justice, and pardon, freedom, justice, and equality to all human families on the planet Earth, otherwise known as civilized people. Also Muslim and Muslim sons. And because a Muslim to us is one who's striving to learn to be righteous, striving to be. So with that being said, that's who's at 85, 10%, and 5%.
Oh, okay. And Queen Mother, last question for real. And then we're gonna let you be free. We're gonna let you go. Okay. Last question. Now you just said all Muslims. Now, can you explain the connection between the nation of gods and earth, the 5% nation, and the nation of Islam?
Okay, now again, the lessons that I have, these are questions and answers, like I said earlier, and these are only a few, it's 1,000 lessons out there that was taught. This is just some lessons I have, but the lessons that I got was W.D. Fard, a brother from over there in Asia, was able to get into the country very secretly, because in them days and times, they were not allowing people of color to come in to the United States. So he had to come in. He was his mother was Caucasian, his father, this is my understanding now. Might be somebody else that come on and say differently, because hey, this is and somebody else might know something different. But right. He was able to get into this country, and he was reared over in Asia. The reason he was reared with a Caucasian woman, because of the fact that he had to be able to get into this country. Like I said, they weren't allowing certain people to come into the country, Black people particularly. So he came over and he gave the knowledge to Elijah Muhammad. And Elijah Muhammad was teaching. So that's where we got our lessons. And the father of our nation used to be in the nation of Islam, which is Elijah Muhammad's minister for archon science. He was in there, and he came out. I think he looked at one of the degrees and said, wait a minute. They talking about that person, because they were just saying that W.D. Fard was God, but they were saying, but he looked at a lesson, he said, the first lesson said, who is the original man? The original man is the Asiatic Black man, the maker, the owner, the creator of the planet Earth, father, civilization, God of the universe. So why that man's God, I should be God. And I think that's what happened. He came and he said, wait a minute. He looked in the mirror and he said, I'm God, and that's what he started teaching. I think in that days and time, I heard that they told him he had to leave the mosque because he was teaching something other than what was being taught in them days. Nowadays, they evolved as well. It's no friction between the two nowadays, because we are all one. It ain't about separation. That's how establishment is made. When you separate, you start separating people, separating. That's where establishment, when you start grafting and separating. So as far as I build with a lot of sisters in the nation. I mean, all cultures I'll build with, because in fact I know who I am. I don't have to, I'm not trying to make everybody be like me, and I'm not trying to be like everybody else. I take the best of what everybody have to add on, because it's about elevating to our highest understanding of intelligence, and living, dealing in immortality, and living as long as we can, eating right, thinking right. So that's how I build with that science, and I hope I answered your question.
But you also, you mentioned something when she was asking about how did some of the lessons evolve. Remember how you used to talk about how the devil was grafted, but nowadays you think of it differently, right? Like you just touched on, establishment is made through separation, right? You know how you've been saying that? Like, I think of it differently nowadays. You know what I'm talking about? How we know how devil was grafted or how it was created, right? Mm-hmm. And now you think of it, how do you create righteousness? Yeah, it's not being, devil's not being made anymore. I'm not making devil, because I'm, like I said, I'm about self. I'm trying to, that's what Islam to me is about. I self, Lord and Master. I sincerely love Allah as man, woman, and child. This is what I'm saying. So I take all them lessons and bring it up into this day and time, because I'm not trying to live in the past. I know about the past.
If you don't know the past, they're saying how you going to elevate to the next level of intelligence. So I know the lessons tell us a lot about our history. It tells us a lot about when we were brought to these decay to here in North America. We were taught how the Caucasian man was evolved from the black man, because there's a black seed and a brown seed, and he kept on changing the seed, turning into a different type of seed. So with that being said, I take them lessons nowadays and bring it to this day and time, because I'm about peace. I ain't about trying to destroy the next person unless they coming toward me, and then I'm going to have to do what I got to do, and speak the truth. But I'm not trying to hurt him, because why? I'm not, hey, I want to, I want to live. I want peace. I want peace,
Thank you, Queen Mother. We appreciate your time and your energy.
I appreciate you.
I was hoping. I told Empress earlier, I said, tell her to pull up if she can.
I be hearing you be building with Empress, and she be listening to you. I be saying, that sister got some wisdom.
I appreciate you so much, and I love you dearly. Thank you so much for your energy and for your lessons. Much peace, much peace.
How do you follow that?
I'm like Empress now.
You gotta do that. You gotta tell them.
Yeah, I will.
For you, you're growing up with that wisdom, that patience, that brilliance, right? Like even as she's describing, being intentional about teaching y'all lessons and things like that, and making sure that y'all went to school with knowledge of self and having this understanding. I love that you mentioned a positive side of growing up in that type of household. You never felt this idea or were taught that you were inferior as a Black woman, right? Community room, we talked about that, and I was saying when we was watching Lovecraft, and I was mentioning how, like, for me, I never was taught anything about like you got to do twice as much to be half as good as them, or to achieve to whiteness or anything like that. It was always instilled that they want to be you, and that's why they come to us, because we are the source, we are the gods of the universe, we are the powerful beings, and you, if anything, you need to be mindful of them, because they're trying to basically steal your energy, stifle your energy, stop you to become you, get up under you, get close to you to be you. For you, Empress, having that energy, knowing that, okay, I'm powerful, I am divine, I am meant to be here, I have purpose. How did that help you when you went out into the world, whether if it was school, the workforce, and relationships? How did having that understanding of your power as a Black woman help you?
I think it's helping me just hearing it from my parents' mouth, especially my father, being such a dynamic man. Like I said, I don't know how every household was. And I'm sure there were some patriarchal dynamics in some of these households as well. And not to say it didn't trickle in our household a little bit too, right? But my father, he always made it very clear how powerful we were. He talked about our minds and, our athleticism and our strength. And it was never like, you're the male, so you're strong and you could do this. It was like, all y'all could do it. All of y'all are powerful. He used to always write me letters and encourage me to strengthen my skills. It's like he knew my skills and my talents before I realized it. So he was always encouraging me, like, learn how to compose music, learn how to, write properly, and learn your grammar and all that. Like, really learn it so that you can really hone in on those skills. So the lessons, of course, I'm sure it was ingrained subconsciously because you always hearing it as well. But I was not immune to the rest of the world when I got out the house with insecurities, especially when I kind of went away from what I was taught, right? I started relaxing my hair, started, doing things that was unlike how I was growing up. And so I became more susceptible to a lot of BS, out here. And now I'm coming back to myself nowadays. But I was not immune to it, to the worldly happenings.
Can you speak to that though? Can you speak to, like, when you realize, the moment you realize, like, okay, this essentially, I hope Queen Mother ain't in the room no more. I'm about to cut.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Actually, the moment that you realize, like, oh, my parents were right about a lot of things, and this world, this ish is really affecting me. what was the moment that you made the decision that, okay, this is affecting me, I'm returning back to my lessons. I gotta go back to where I started from, because that was what I needed.
Well, that's still evolving, right? But the moment probably was when my father transitioned. It was a spark. Something happened. I was living in New York City during the time, and I was doing a lot of things that were unlike myself, you know. I realized how influenced I am by my environment. And so if I'm working at a certain job, or I'm around a certain people, or I'm dating a certain type of person, I really start to become like a chameleon, and I'm acting like them. My mindset is like them. So it was necessary for me to go back to my lessons and learn about myself and who I am, but so that when I'm stepping out in the world, and I think you mentioned it the other day on one of your lives, you were like, before you step out, you need to know who you are. And that's what I'm learning now. But it was around the time when my father transitioned, and I was really grieving from that. I was, you know, living that fast life in New York City, you know, and having all the effects from that spiritually, physically, mentally. And I needed to ground, and I needed to sit my butt down and like just get back to the basics. And that's when I read through all my lessons during that time. And then I know my brother Golden, he came to visit me during that time. He stayed a little longer after my father's services. And I mentioned something about what I was doing, kind of casually. And it was like my father was speaking through him and kind of bringing me back, like, you ain't got to be doing that. You don't need to be doing that, you know? So it was the times of darkness, you know, when it was like, and I feel like it's been a few, I don't know how many rock bottoms you get, but it's been some troubling times for sure, that I'm like, oh, I need to learn who I am again. I need to remember who I am. I need to be more secure in myself, not based off what I have in this material world. I need to know that I'm worthy by myself. And that's just remembering what my parents taught me. Like she said, there's nobody greater than me, you know, and I'm powerful, and I got the piece with the magnetic, you know. And once I realized that, now that I do attract a lot of different people, you're going to attract light, dark, all that stuff. And now that I recognize that, I move differently. You know, I can't just be telling everybody my business. I can't be, you know, and so I'm learning that because I've been burned a few times for not heeding that wisdom. Yeah.
Now you mentioned you returning back to your lessons and returning back to your book of life, and your book of life was written by your father, right?
Yeah, a lot of it was his handwritten. Yeah,
it's handwritten by him. How does that impact your connection to your lessons?
I mean, I don't think I would have gone back to them if they weren't handwritten. It's like he knew at that time when I needed it, you know, like he just knew, and it just connected me more to the culture. I'm reading it, I see his handwriting. I also see letters that he wrote to me in there, some that he wrote. My father I'm very poetic, and I'm a writer myself, and very creative. Both of my parents are as well, but especially my father too. He was a poet. So he was always writing poetry. He was always, you know, I wanted to read a few lines of something that he had wrote for y'all. Just to kind of get the mindset, you know, of who he was. So he connected me more to those lessons. And I think it's great because those lessons are really up for interpretation as well. You know, it's how you interpret it. So you're not going to it's no right or wrong answer to it. It's not one way to it. It's like, just like you go to a parliament or a show and prove, you know, they're like, how do you see today's mathematics? And you're going to get different answers because people are going to have different interpretations of it. I think that's beautiful.
You should know what a parliament is and a show and prove.
So my sister, do y'all know what a parliament and a show and prove is? It's like
In Harlem.
They do the show and prove. It's yearly, right, in Harlem. But they have parliaments often as well, depending on what city and state that you're in, wherever there's a gathering. A lot of times it's on Sundays, right? Some Sundays, depends on, you know, what the group does there, but they come in together. And, you know, I remember growing up and we would go to the show and prove every year. We used to be running around with all the other children. There was food, there was vending, there was talent shows, fashion shows, and it was also a meeting of the minds. You know, it was talking about the mathematics and talking about the lessons and talking about what we could do as a culture moving forward as well.
And oftentimes that's referred to as building, right? Like having these discussions. And I love that language, right? Because something you'll notice is that everybody, as Empress mentioned, everybody has their own understanding of what the math for that day is supposed to mean and how to practice it, how to implement it. And everybody comes together. It's not about who's right and who's wrong, who's better or who's less than. It's about how can we build upon each other's understanding, right? So that's the process of building, right? It's not a battle, it's a build. And that's a beautiful thing. And I feel like that's a huge mindset shift that a lot of people need to have. And that's why I'm very big on this in this community about like, hey, y'all, we don't all have to agree on everything. Let's have discussions, thoughts, feels. What's your understanding? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What lessons did you pick up? Let's build upon each other, right? And we all walk away thinking. That's the goal. Nobody should walk away feeling like I won that debate. We should all walk away feeling pushed to elevate our thinking and challenge our own perspective in a different way. That's the process of building. We all help grow each other, right? Now, Empress, you were going to read some lessons from your book of life and essentially some, I believe, a couple lines from the poem that your father had written. Please share whatever you desire to share. And then we'll open up the floor to questions. Y'all don't raise no hands yet. Okay.
This is just what I'm reading. It's not the process.
Yeah, that's not from the book of life.
Okay, first, before I even, because I wanted to, we have the supreme mathematics, right? And in my book of life, it has even a deeper breakdown of what knowledge, wisdom, understanding, which one each of them mean. And I thought I'd give y'all a definition of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, because I feel like it's full circle. If you're into numerology, if you're into tarot, if you're into all of this stuff, I feel like it's all so connected. So with the supreme mathematics, right? Knowledge is number one, is to know, look, listen, observe, and respect. It is the cosmogonical root and cause of that which was, that which is, and that which is yet to be. It is the universal divine mind, mental realm of life and foundation of all things. The sun is the universal symbol of knowledge that sustains the solar system. The Black man is symbolic to the sun and is the anthropocentrically ascribed source of life to his family system, right? So it's like doing the knowledge. Before you can move to the next step, you need to do the knowledge. You need to understand what's going on. You need to look, listen, observe, and respect. I love that respect is in there as well. You can't get to wisdom. You can't get to number two without knowledge. Knowledge is the foundation.
Absolutely.
Then you have two, wisdom. Wisdom is the manifestation of knowledge born from the mental realm of life into the realm of physical life, form, and expression. It is the wise words, ways, and actions of a wise man's character and conduct. It is by way of the wisdom that I wise the dome of the dumb. The moon is the universal symbol of wisdom that reflects the light of the sun and is secondary but most necessary to the knowledge, as the Black woman is to the Black man. Wisdom is the application of the self-evident truth. So again, you can't get to the next steps without taking the first few. You know, wisdom is the way. As they say, knowledge is the foundation, wisdom is the way.
I love the fact that wisdom is knowledge manifested, right? It's the implementation of the knowledge as well. I love that emphasis on it.
Yeah, because if you try to just skip to wisdom, it's like, where are you even pulling from? Where are you drawing from? Where's this information come from? You just kind of speaking just to speak, you know? And that's experience right there too. That's how you gain experience. And then you have three, understanding. Understanding is to see things clearly for what they are and not what they may present themselves to be. It is a clear mental picture drawn up into the third eye by way of the knowledge and the wisdom. The star is the universal symbol of understanding. And understanding is also the best part of the Black man and Black woman and is known as the baby Black child. Understanding to me, I think of clarity, you know, and the more you do it, right, with knowledge and wisdom and understanding, you have more practice and you're able to master and you're able to teach it as well. But you got to go through those steps first. Absolutely. So I wanted to give y'all a few of the supreme mathematics, Because I think it's really important, and we bring it into our everyday life when we want to manifest and we want to reach our goals. You have to have that knowledge, wisdom, understanding. You got to learn something first. You got to be there. Sometimes we have to be quiet and just listen and observe, right? And then once you get that knowledge, once you have that, then you could start using that information that you have to start putting and implementing, and then you have a better understanding of it. That's how we reach our goals too. That's how we manifest.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is also in my book of life. I'm not completely sure who wrote it. It was either my father or he got these lessons from someone else as well. Like my mother said, the book of life, there's so many lessons out here, and everybody's book of life is going to look so different. My father, he really created mine with some really cool stuff. And he was before he decided to join the nation, he was studying so many other religions and lifestyles. You know, he could tell you stuff about Buddhism, Hinduism, all of that stuff, because he studied all of this as well before he decided, like, this is where I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to learn. This is what I'm going to teach. But all of that informs even his, informs where he was in the nation, informs his mindset, and informs the wisdom that he imparted as well.
Yes. Yes.
Cause and effect. Number one, it is the eternal law of nature that there can be no effect without a cause. We are arbiters of our own destiny. Things which we allow to lodge in our hearts and life are the seeds, and seeds will mature a harvest according to the law of like produces like. Number two, mostly everything that happens to you was initiated by you. The law of cause and effect operates in moral, mental, and spiritual realms just as surely as it does on the physical plane where we can see and understand it. Number three, wisdom is the faculty of knowing what will be the effect of a cause. This is not a dream world in which we live. It is a world of reality. Understand the law of cause and effect. I will suffer if I violate it. It becomes my greatest friend if I understand it. Number four, it is the law that states, you get out of life what you put into it. Every action in life has a reaction. This is the law of cause and effect. Happy is he who has succeeded in learning the cause of things. Number five, essential knowledge is the knowledge that gives point and meaning to life itself. One of the best and fastest ways of acquiring knowledge is to insist on remaining ignorant about things that are not worth knowing. Number six, the true teacher is life itself, and the world is only the school in which we can learn what is obviously needed. Life has a way of forcing one to learn by experience when one will not learn no other way. Number seven, spiritual means with faith, love, kindness, courage, hope, and peace of mind. 8, no man can violate a natural law without paying a price. This is the central idea in the laws of life. The fullness of life does not come from the things outside of us. We ourselves must create the beauty in which we live. Number 9, anyone who wants to live a richer life has only to realize that it is up to him to recognize all types of beauty and cultivate that love of it within his whole own soul. Number 10, no knowledge that we acquire is so important as knowledge of what to say, how to say it, or what to do and how to do it. Number 11, time is indeed a sacred gift, and each day is a little life. Number 12, it's how people spend their time that determines how well off they are. And number 13, self-discipline is the master habit of the master-minded man. And I just love that. And it just reminded me of all the things I need to remember.
Can you repeat the last one more time?
Self-discipline is the master habit of the master-minded man.
Boom. Boom. That seals the deal. Okay. That seals the deal. Okay. I love that. And thank you so much, Empress, for really sharing that like sacred information, sacred knowledge with the family, especially sacred knowledge that was passed to you from your father, you know, because I know how meaningful and how beautiful that relationship was for you, you know, and how amazing he was to you and your whole family, and a blessing to many people beyond the ones that he was a part of the birth of, you know. He was a blessing to many, a divine teacher to many, many, many people. Now, I wanted to ask you, you know, because Queen Mother touched on it, but I wanted to ask you, what are some lessons, practices, or experiences that with time and understanding you have evolved out of or shifted your understanding of?
As she mentioned, you know, growing up, there was a particular way of how they referenced the colored man, right? Which they were talking about the white man. So growing up with that, I feel like I probably had some type of perception or some subconscious mindset about white people, right? Which you ain't got to be in the nation to have that, you know? But that is something I have evolved out of. But for the longest time, there was times I was attracted to white men, right? But I almost felt like bad about it. One time I took a picture in high school with this white guy who had a crush on. Someone wrote like, "Oh, that's the one," something like that. My father wrote on there, "The one for who?" And I was like, this is embarrassing. So I feel like I held on to that kind of perception of like white people. What I didn't want, because I know the reason why systems like this are created, they're created out of a need for it, right? We needed to empower ourselves. We still need to empower ourselves. So in a way, and that's not to say that melanin is powerful, and that's just factual. It's scientific. Melanin is very powerful, you know? But I didn't want to get to a point where it was like, I felt like I was superior to someone, you know, because we were made inferior. And so for a while, I kind of was like not interested in like even connecting with white people, even if it wasn't even just like romantically, but just like not really trusting them in a way as well. And now I see, as my mother said, as we grew up, it was never anti-white. It was more so anti-devilishment. And it wasn't even pro-Black. It was more so pro-righteousness. That's what they instilled in us, you know. But reading the lessons, if you hearing that white people were grafted this way from killing off the Black and brown babies and all that stuff, then you're gonna have you're gonna feel some type of way. And so now with me learning different things and seeing things from a even higher perspective, I'm looking through a dual lens, you know. I see how powerful our melanin is, you know, and I see how important it is for Black families to thrive and Black men and women to come together. That's radical. I think it's very, very important. But I'm also not judging people who do decide interracial relations and all that, because I feel like it's for a reason. Everyone got their own path and their journey. For me, I'm still figuring out. I can't leave my Black man alone. I'm not gonna lie. I'm here. Right. I'm here for life.
What I like, you know.
I like what I like. Okay. So that was an interesting way to evolve out of that, but not just the nation. I'm sure in the households that our history, you know, melanated people's history. You know, it could be challenging out here to try to trust people. And as we see, even today, people still got a lot more evolving to do. Right. But I'm not, all skin folk ain't kin folk, you know? Right. So I'm going off like how you treating people, and you know, you could be righteous. It don't matter the skin color, you know. Mm-hmm. How righteous you could be, how you treat people, are you respectful and all that. But I take the best part. As my parents always said, you take the best part, you know, in anything you learn, you take the best part, because in everything, there's going to be things you don't agree with. There's going to be some things that are outdated. You just take the best part. And that's what I do. That's what I'm at.
I love it. Okay, Empress, before we open up the floor to questions, is there any final lesson or any final piece of wisdom that you want to give the community before we open up to questions?
I would say, if you're interested in learning about this culture, just like any other culture, just really do your research. Yeah. Oh yeah. If you're in New York as well, they have the law school at Mecca. Where is that at? In 27th Street. On 27th. Yeah, and go check it out. Also, just do research with anything. Just do your research. I think it's really important for us to learn about a lot of different things so we can figure out what works for us individually. I'm not necessarily raising my children in the nation, but I will still be teaching them different lessons and teaching them the best parts of it. Just like I'm gonna be teaching them, different aspects of the Yoruba religion and Buddhism, like the best part, because a lot of this stuff is saying the same thing.
Right.
So I would just say that do your research and continue to learn yourself.
Yes. Thank you, Empress and Queen Mother. Okay, we are going to open up the floor to questions. Now, family, let me tell y'all, okay? Hold on 1 second, Max. Don't put hands up yet. Okay, let me tell y'all. Let me give the caveat. Remember how we talked about when I have Yaya Tish come on, how we gonna do questions? We about to do that like that right now. Okay, so this is not the time for you to share your personal life story. This is not the time for you to give an autobiography or bibliography or anything like that. If the sentence does not start with what, who, how, when, is, do not raise your hand. Questions only. Questions only. Queen Mother, excuse my language. Don't make me get bitchy. Okay, I will mute you and put your hand down. This is not the time for life stories. Okay, I love y'all. Questions only. Okay, we have to be respectful of people's time. Okay, I'm gonna go to Max and then I'm gonna go down the line. Max, thoughts? No, stop. Let me correct myself. No thoughts. Max, questions?
Can you hear me? I always got a question. So,
yes.
How you doing? Nice to meet you, and thank you, Queen, for bringing her on, and you being able to answer questions for us. I have 2 questions. One is in regards to the Book of Life, and the other is to a statement that you made. The question in regards to the Book of Life, is it like your personal Bible, just like as a reference?
Just like the Bible has different lessons in there, the Book of Life is a lot of questions and answers. Like I said, it tells you about the beginning, about our history, but also just like my mother, I think you went through. You said the first one, who is the original man? So it's just like it's a lot of lessons, but there's so many lessons out there. So many lessons out there that has the solar facts, actual facts in there. Is teaching us about ourselves. So that's really what it is. The Bible, I feel like I didn't grow up Christian, but that is also something my father knew about too, because he did grow up in that type of household. But I feel like the Bible, does it teach you more about outside of yourself, I would say? I feel like the lessons, it teaches you more about yourself, especially if you're a melanated being, it's like an empowering book of life, and it's your own personal book of life, so you can add in there whatever you want as well. So it's not, I guess if you had to say if it's like something like a Bible, because it's that standard for the nation, then yeah, you would have something like, would you agree with that? Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say rather than it's more like a roadmap for your life.
Yeah, I like that, definitely.
Okay, and my second question was, there was a statement in regards to the 85 that's considered the weak. What is considered weak to you guys?
Yeah, my mother just said, we'll say one thing, lack of discipline. right? I think that if you know that if you have a goal, or if you know that something is not good for you, right? Say you got a cold or something like that, and you know it's probably not best to be going out to party, or you know it's probably not best to be eating inflammatory foods or something at that point, but you choose, right? Because we always have a choice. You choose to still do that, the things that's not going to be good for you. That could be a weakness. It's a lack of discipline. So things like that, I would say. And it's not meant to be like offensive or anything like that, to say, you know, someone is weak like that. But we all have those weak moments that we got to choose and say, this is for my wellness. This is not, you know, in all aspects and areas of our life.
And I want to add to that, right? Because that's the thing, right? It's not meant to make someone feel bad, but that's, as I said earlier, you know, it's to say like, oh, you are a part of the 85, you know, and then when we say the deaf, dumb, and blind, it's like, wait a second, hold on, what you trying to say? Yeah. You know, people get very, you know, offended, and I understand, right? So it's important to note exactly what Empress just said, whereas we all have the choice. We all have the choice, and everybody somewhere has a weakness somewhere. But I think when we talk about the discipline, it's about, are you aware of your weaker areas? And do you have the discipline to do better? Do you have the discipline to challenge yourself to be better than what you have been before? And we should all be striving to that, for that every day, right? We should all be striving for self-discipline. We should all be striving to improve upon. The other day, right, I talked about the N-word. And I said, I know it's wrong to say the N-word. I'm not going to sit up here and try to pretend and try to like make some magical, like, oh no, like, come on. In my opinion, from the history of the word, like, we know what it is, but we still make the conscious choice to say it, even though we know what the word was founded in, the history of the word here in America, right? We know that. For me, I'm taking accountability and saying, I know better. I need to make a conscious choice to do better. That's the area of weakness. I need to make a conscious choice to do better, and I don't. So in that area, I am lacking self-discipline. I challenge everyone to ask yourself, in what area of my life do I need to improve upon? And what area in my life could I be more disciplined when it comes to your mindset, when it comes to your physical practices, whether if it's what you eat, whether if it's working out, keeping a clean home, you know, taking care of your physical body as far as making sure you're cleansing on a regular basis, blessing your energy. What are some things spiritually that you could be more disciplined? We should all constantly be striving to be better individuals, you know? So again, it's not something that's meant to be hurtful, although I understand how it can sound hurtful, but really it's about taking up the challenge to be better. That's what it's centered in. Hopefully, I hope y'all understand that and receive that a little bit.
Yeah, it's like once you see something, you can't unsee it, right? What we're seeing on the world stage, even what's going on in all these other countries, like the genocide and the atrocities, mainstream media, you know, they've been telling us one certain story, like, and so we've been kind of sheep and we've been blind to what's been going on. But now we see it, right? But there is a certain group of people or systems in place, right? That would be like the 10%, right? That want to keep people blind and deaf and dumb to what's going on, make it seem like we're all so separated, right? And the fact is, we're way more connected, you know, than when we really, than what they make it seem like we are. So all of these lessons, even though it may come off in like these harsh words, it's like that tough love. It's like tough love. It's like, you know, it may come out a little harsh, but sometimes that's what some people need to hear to really get it. And some people don't need it that harsh, you know. But I just want you to take the best part of it. But just like Queen Post said, we all it's not just certain people. It's like we all have those weaknesses, and it's something we got to take on that challenge ourselves to just be our better versions of ourselves all the time.
Right.
Thank you. I thought you was gonna say something totally different, like, because I'm from New York and I got the like, I'm not gonna say monster, like, but like the her side of 5% is like, you know, the guys out on the street and stuff like that. So I thought you was gonna say something totally different, but I love your answer and I do want to thank you for that because I was not expecting that at all.
Okay. That's good.
Thank you, Max. Much love, much love. And that was a good question. And Empress, the 85-10-5, would you say it's more or less who is willing to put forth the discipline, right? Because I think about that 13th lesson that you just shared with us, right? About mastery, self-mastery, right? As opposed to it being separated based on weaknesses, which is, I think that's how a lot of people receive it. Like it's separated based on weaknesses. I think it's more or less separated based upon intentions, as well as who is actually implementing the wisdom, like who's actually making the effort to have that knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and practice the self-discipline. Right?
Absolutely. Because you even see online, something comes up that something is exposed that's bad for us, or someone been doing something wrong. And then you'll still see people in the comments like, well, I'm gonna just take my chances. I'm gonna just deal, like, and they've been exposed to the truth and now they're making that choice. And I don't even know if those percentages are still even on to this day, because it's been a great awakening and a great shift that's been happening, since the times of these lessons. So I don't know if it's 85% anymore. I don't even know if that 10% is even as big anymore. So I think there's like big shifts happening. I think you just do your best for yourself and don't compare yourself to nobody else.
Absolutely. Okay, next up we have Tatiana. Tatiana, question.
Hi, peace everybody. I just want to say, Empress, thank you so much, and to your mother for dropping so many gems. I've just been over here for the past hour just writing stuff down. So it's amazing to see a scholar like you kind of just share your wisdom and life experiences. So I'm kind of in a similar mindset to the questions that Max asked. And I was also going to ask about the book of life, if that was like a personal like book that your family kind of does, just gather all the lessons and just pass it down like from generation to generation. But I was wondering, as a person who's still naive, such as myself, in this 5%, and kind of want to just learn more about the culture, what are some good book recommends that you would recommend for a starter?
You know of any books?
Any books?
Yeah, for like anyone who wanted to start on that journey.
Well, I would think they would go to the school in Mecca on 126th Street and 7th Avenue.
They might not live in New York, though.
If they don't live in New York, but they can look online, just look up the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths. And they can look online, and there's a lot of brothers and sisters on there that they can acknowledge some of the wisdom.
Absolutely. Start looking online, because nowadays Google got a whole lot of stuff now. Of course, you got to be discerning, because you just never know the stuff everyone puts out there, but just do your research for sure. And I think because you're interested in it and you're seeking it, I feel like you're going to also attract it. You're going to attract someone who's who else is in the nation that knows even more and that can teach you what you need to know. But I would say just there's a lot of stuff available online, even if you are just starting with like supreme mathematics and supreme alphabets, or even just learning the history of it. That's always a good place to start and see how you interpret all that. And just learn as much as you can, even there, if you don't know someone personally who's in it, or especially if you're not in New York City. But you could probably even look to see in your city where some gods and earths may commune as well, and see how you can connect with them as well.
But you can't take everybody on face value just because they come in the name of God or come in the name of Earth. You still have to, be really particular who you want to add on to. But like I said, on 126th Street for sure, the law school in Mecca, they have a store there too.
Do they have a website?
Yeah.
Okay, the law school in Mecca, on 126th Street in New York City. I would say look that up, because if they have a website too, there's more information you can get there as well, because it's a school, so they're definitely always teaching.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then my follow-up question was, when you were talking about discipline as a mastery habit, I wanted to kind of ask a little bit further what you believe are the pillars of self-discipline. And then a follow-up question to that is, how has the 5% influenced your personal spiritual devotion?
The pillars of self-discipline, I feel like in what I just wrote, what I just read, every day is a new day. And even with with self-discipline, I feel like what I'm thinking about is from the 4 agreements. Every day I'm trying to think of those. Do not take things personally. Do not make assumptions. Be impeccable with your word and always do your very best. So heavy on that, always do your very best. Every day is going to look different. Every day your best is going to look different as well. Make a plan and know what works for you, because everyone is different. It's going to be a little more difficult for someone else to stay disciplined on something else, but focus on you, have a goal, make a plan, and start putting into action. But don't beat yourself up if that day it didn't go as you planned, but always do your best each day. I think that's at least how I move through life, because when you have habits that don't serve you, it could be really difficult to break those habits, especially if you've been doing it for so long. But you got to just remind yourself why you're doing it, and don't think about it as something that you're losing. Instead, because there's many things to replace it with. Think of it as something as you're gaining. It shouldn't be a punishment, this self-discipline. We got goals, we have a purpose, and self-discipline is the way to get there, so always do your very best. And then don't beat yourself up. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. And then the second question about the nation and how it has kind of informed my spirituality today. Is that what you said?
Devotion. Mm-hmm.
My spiritual devotion. It's really interesting because we learned, the God is within us, and Allah is arm, leg, arm, head. Me learning different schools of thought, it was really challenging for me when I go into my prayer, because we never prayed growing up. It wasn't, you're not praying to a mystery God. We were not praying on our knees, but then I started learning about meditation. And meditation was a thing, though, in our nation. And so I had to find a way to incorporate all these things. And I'd be in my prayer, I'd be in my meditation, and I'd be calling the divine spirit so many different names, one after another, because I'm like, I don't want to miss it, but I'm saying the same thing, but with different names, and I'm still, to this day, I'm still doing that as I figure that out, because I grew up with this idea of there's no mystery God. But now I realize with Allah, arm, leg, arm, head, that's a lot of reverence for myself and my body. So I'm always taking care of myself, because I know I'm a divine being. So what I put in, what I consume, all of that is very important, and it'll inform how I manage my days, how I respond to life, how I respond to life's difficulties. So I know that I am being in reverence to God by being in reverence to myself. That's self-love, affirmations. And that's what I make sure I do every day. So it informed it in that way, by bringing it back, by saying, I am God. I didn't grow up hearing the Black woman is God, but now that's what me and my mother say. That's how we say it, because I am a God, I am a reflection. I am a creative. I'm created by God, and that's who I am. I'm that living God as well. So I'm going to make sure I respect myself, but also, as I do to myself, I do to others too. So I'm going to respect each person as well.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That was such a good answer, girl. I felt like I was on Family Feud. Good answer.
Good answer. Good.
That was good, girl. Thank you, Tatiana, for such a good question as well. Next up, we have Oyemi question.
Yes, peace. Okay, so I just had one question. I did study years ago, but my thing was I never understood the hierarchy.
Oyemi question. What?
I'm getting to the question. The hierarchy. So, what is the difference between God, Empress, Mother Earth, and then the rest of the principles? Because those things I never understood in the 5%.
So Empress is not necessarily in there. That's my name. The ruler of an empire. That's just my name. So, but if we're talking about hierarchy, actually something that even my father wrote, he made it clear. He says, I'm not above you. We're all equals. We're in this together. So even with
the womb of man,
the womb of the man, so
man
we're
with the womb.
I was gonna say, I think that's a question for Queen Mother to answer.
Because she's answering it. She's saying we're all equals, basically. Some of us have the womb, some of us don't, but we're equal. But I don't believe, even though it may have been, it may have looked like it was that there was this hierarchy of Black man, Black woman. All that is so necessary. Just like we need the sun, we need the moon, we need the stars, we need the Black man, we need the Black woman, we need the Black children. So every part of that is important. You're not going to go no further with just the Black man. Where you go from there, you know, the Black woman, you need to, it's important to procreate with the Black woman. You need her wisdom. Black children, you know, they're continuing. So everyone is necessary. Everyone is important, you know, so it's not necessarily, it's not a hierarchy. It's just like, you know,
intelligent is the higher.
The most intelligent about that particular topic, about that particular subject. Yeah. So it's just like, it's not about who's leading the whole thing. It's about who's necessary to lead for that particular subject, who's necessary to lead for that particular thing. You know about this? Okay, you're gonna take the lead and I'm gonna follow you on this. You know about this? Oh, I know about this, so I'm gonna take the lead because that's the smartest way to go. It's not necessarily that you the head, you know, you're the master. It's not like that. You know, every piece is integral to the success.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Empress, as well as Queen Mother, you know, because that's I was hoping, and I'm glad Nicole in the chat, Nicole said, hearing the woman's perspective on 5%ers is so much more appealing than how I have been introduced to it from a male perspective, because I think it's important to note that we're hearing this understanding, right? And we're hearing these lessons from the Black woman's perspective, and not just the Black woman's perspective, but the Black woman's perspective who has been in this tradition, in this culture for decades and decades and decades, right? So this is years of evolution and growth and understanding, right? This is years of, yes, Oriana, of building, right? And think about the level of discipline that it takes to practice what they just shared, that level of discipline to say, hey, I know I'm not the most intellectual in the room to speak on this topic, so I'm gonna step up so that I'm gonna step back so you can step up, right? Y'all are witnessing it right here, right? With me saying, hey, the Empress grew up in this day in and day out. She can speak to this experience way more than I can speak to this experience. Let me step back so she can step up. And then Empress being able to look to Queen Mother for certain answers and say, hey, Queen Mother knows more than me. Let me step back so she can step up. Y'all are witnessing it. Y'all are witnessing it. So it's not a hierarchy based on title. It's a hierarchy based on intellect in the moment. In the moment. That's the only hierarchy that matters in any situation, right? That was a good question. Oh, Yemi, we appreciate you. And next up, we have Chanel. Chanel Love, question.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for just taking the time to talk to us. I'm going to be really quick. I have a question about hair and what specific lessons that you received about your hair and like the spirituality of hair. I noticed that you mentioned that your hair was, you felt like you kind of lost some of yourself when you permed your hair. And I noticed, you know, many spiritual people keep their hair locked. So I just wanted to get more specific on that.
Thank you for that question. There's no particular lessons about hair that I know of, but just in my household, you know, we didn't get relaxers. We're not putting the chemicals on our scalp. And again, we were always empowered, and the coily and the kinks, they were revered and they were beautiful. But again, I was not immune to, you know, the outside perspective. So when I did get out the house, I got the relaxer. But I've gone through a hair journey, and I did have locks. I cut my locks because it was for a spiritual reason. I feel like I needed to start over. But I've had a serious hair journey, but it was never because I was not taught to love my hair in my household. It was quite the contrary. I was told to love my hair. And, you know, my mother, she'd always say, oh, your hair is so strong, it's so beautiful, you know, and I have a very kinky, coily hair, as they say, 4C hair. And, but I was so different from my friends. Everyone had the relaxers and all of that, that I really wanted that, you know, I wanted that. So when I got out the house, I started getting the relaxers, but now I've come back and I'm on this new journey after I cut my hair and I'm growing it back, I have cornrows now, of really embracing and loving my hair. And I feel like a lot of Black women, we have scalp issues and have issues with our hair, because at the root of it, we didn't really love our hair. We always wanted to be unlike ourselves. And at least that was for me, you know? And so I realized I had some hair loss on my scalp, and I realized recently, I'm like, you know what? My scalp is probably like, look, you don't even like me, so I'm just about to head out. Like, why you even care? You've been trying to change me. You've been trying to switch, you know, you don't like me. And so now I'm on this beautiful journey of telling my hair and letting my hair know, you know, you are appreciated, you are loved, you know, you're admired, like you are desired. And recognizing, I've been seeing it, even we're so reflective of nature, the coils and the spirals, and universal. It's so powerful. Our hair grows towards the sun. I'm reading The Melanated Empath, shout out to Universal Lighthouse. I'm reading The Melanated Empath, and she talks about, you know, our hair reaching towards the sun and how much of it's just like nature and how powerful our hair is. So I think it's such a beautiful movement happening with us going back to natural. And no, you know, no offense to anybody who does choose to get relaxed or anything, that's your choice, you know, it's no judgment at all. But for me, I needed to come back to myself and begin to be more secure in myself. And that started with loving what grows out of my body and, you know, out of my scalp, and really being a radical and resisting what I've been told, not by my family, but what I've been told from the outside world about my hair and how I look, about how it's not beautiful. And I'm telling myself, you're beautiful and so powerful. So it was not necessarily in the lessons, but growing up in that household, you know, it was absolutely no relaxers. We didn't even get extensions or anything like that. Most of the time we had our head covered. And so it was this emphasis more so about the mind and focusing on the task at hand and our studies instead of just the physical, you know, where, you know, our curves and stuff were not showing. And I'm imagining that's why they did that and why that's in the culture, so that you can focus on that, you know. And that's not to say that's going to stop predators from coming, as we know, because if you're going to predator, you're going to prey, you know. However, I think it's beautiful to really just embrace your natural hair and defy anyone telling you that you're not beautiful, because how can it not be beautiful when it's naturally coming out your hair? It's so powerful.
I think the first off, that was a great response, Empress. And I love that you mentioned the journey, you know, of essentially finding beauty in your hair for you, you know, like it was instilled in you that your hair is beautiful and strong and powerful, you know, but you still had to go on a journey to really reach that understanding for self. And I love that, right? I know for sure that some people wanted the understanding of the covering, right? Because you mentioned 3/4 of cloth, never showing your stuff off, you know. And when we talk about our 3/4 of cloth, some people, you know, they think and they wonder, is it because, you know, the hair is seen as like this sacred magical thing and all of that? And I think there's this misconception that, and I'm gonna be honest with y'all, you know, I've spoken on this before. There's this misconception that all of your power is in your hair, and there's two that has to be differentiated. Your hair is beautiful, it's strong, it's a symbol of beauty and more things, right? But you can cut your hair, right? It does not mean that your spiritual power it's in your hair. And if you don't have your hair, therefore you are not spiritually powerful, right? We have to be mindful of these lessons that we teach ourselves and what we tell ourselves. I love the fact that Empress mentioned that, we covered our hair, we covered our curves, but it was so that we could focus on the mind, right? The hair is beautiful, the curves are beautiful, the body is beautiful, but our mind, our intellect, our spiritual self is what's truly powerful. Do you or Queen Mother want to expound upon that, about moving beyond the physical beauty to really connect to the spiritual?
Well, what she was mentioning was the reason why Earth's women in the culture that cover themselves 3/4, because it's reminiscent of the Earth. The Earth is covered by 3/4 of water as well. So there's always that parallel of the Earth and the woman who is known as the Earth as well. So was there anything more with that? Why do you think they said that? Or
well, because we was a nation of the gods and the earth, but the gods and earth, so we always related ourselves to the earth, and that was why we used to cover our bodies and everything, because we, just like the earth is covered 3/4 of our surface by water, I mean the earth is, so be us as well. And also it's written in some the culture how we want to preserve, we cover up also to preserve ourselves for our men.
The best part.
Yeah, keep the best part preserved for our men. That's what we used to do.
Or even best part preserved for ourselves. I thought that's what I used to hear y'all say. I never heard the man part, but
our husband.
Is one of them is about Black Jesus, where the Son of Being appearing in Africa?
Yep, Black Jesus story was probably one of the most shocking things I ever heard. It came from my insider, Jacob. I call him that in the book. There's some very serious extraterrestrial threats to Earth, and that
born in 1918 in Angola, Simeon Toko, the man Jehovah. From the cosmos, straight to the Congo, like the one with 3 holes and walked with 12 apostles. Hole in his rib, never felt the gospel. The refugees were Portuguese. In 1970 came Walter Reed's Destiny, Heavenly. Our pedigrees, longevity, celebrity. Jeridians and Nomos, Simeon Toko, Bicentennial, reptilian logo. Who thought of a Christ would eat chicken with his jaw off rice? That's Nigerian, but he was Angolian. A holy man, say peace to priest Simeon, the golden lamb.
So the story goes that in the 1960s there was a black man in Africa.
Ezekiel saw it, chapter 1 down. Isaiah seen it, chapter 6. John seen it, Revelations 4. I seen it, 1999. Far away, up in the sky, bright, what a sight. I thought it was Venus, the stars lit above the goddess. The Egyptian winged disc, rulers, don't forget Sumer, kingless, priests enthronement, Greeks and Romans, Apocalypse, Romulus and Remus, gods, devils, angels, demons, large vessels, bring those legions by the boatload. Abyssinians, who was Simeon Toko.
And